All right, looks like we're good to go. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Wednesday, the 29th session. Just as a reminder, today is going to be our first of our 3-hour sessions. And so, being there for the long haul on a Zoom meeting today. I'm excited about today's agenda. We have a report from the subcommittee that we had draft up combined straw designs for our sick leave bank language. And then we're going to go back into talking story interest options and hopefully straw design for talking about plan time issues from carrying over from previously. Dave and Jim, I'm going to kick it over to you to get us started with our check-in and whatnot.
Sounds good, Dave. Thanks a lot. Same check added in as before. Who are you? Position and district. How are you? Issues, elephants, and expectations. And Allison, you're on.
I'm Allison Alter. I'm social studies teacher at Horizon High School. I am pulling myself together. I had an off morning. I put my oatmeal into my coffee, which is not what I wanted. So I am, pulling it together. I'm like halfway through the coffee, so that means my brain's starting to work. So I'm good, no issues or elephants. Expectations are just to continue to do some good work and hopefully get a couple of things checked off today.
Teresa.
Teresa Barajas, North Glen Middle School, assistant principal. Doing well today. No issues or elephants. Looking forward to a productive meeting. I feel like the last two have been very productive, so looking forward to the day.
Deborah.
Good morning, Deborah Blake, special education teacher, Arapahoe Ridge Elementary School. I am almost well. Similarly to Allison, I had a rough morning. The milk in my coffee curdled, and so that was not a good way to start the day. Had to dump that out, start all over again. So I'm also still working on mine. That was my issue. That's all gone. My expectations are to attack elementary plan time and get some good work done.
Shelley.
Good morning. I'm Michelle D. I teach 3rd grade at Meridian Elementary, and I have no issues or elephants. I got a good night's rest. I haven't been sleeping well, but I think it all caught up to me, and I got a lot of sleep last night. So I feel really good, and I feel like we're starting to get on a roll. I feel excited about hearing the straw language for our sick leave bank, maybe being able to tick that off. And I'm excited to really dive into the work regarding elementary plan time. That's near and dear to my heart, and I have a lot to say.
Heather Espinoza.
Good morning, Heather Espinoza from Wood Glen Elementary. I teach 2nd grade. I'm having some Zoom struggles this morning, so I apologize if I sound like a robot. I'm feeling okay. It's my first of 5 Zoom meetings today, so I need to load up on the coffee. No issues or elephants, and I look forward to good conversation around elementary plan time today.
Bo.
Good morning, Bo Fobert, Executive Director of Curriculum and Instruction. I'm well this morning, no issues, no elephants. Not so much an expectation, but an intention just to listen well, keep an open mind today, and keep in mind who we're all here representing.
Colleen.
Colleen Gardner. Good morning, everyone. 6th grade math teacher, Shadow Ridge Middle School. I had my tech challenge yesterday, Heather. I sat in a Zoom meeting for 30 minutes waiting for my kids to come to my escape room, and my feelers were getting hurt. And then I realized I'd opened the wrong meeting. And it was all my fault. And so I had to send emails really quick. But other than that, I'm good. I have no issues or elephants. My expectation is that we really use this extra time, the 3rd hour, to really get through some stuff today.
Chris.
Hi, I'm Chris, superintendent. I'm tired today. I think 2 months of 60 to 70-hour weeks is starting to catch up with me. So I'm just grinding through as best I can, but a little worn out. No issues or elephants, and expectations for another productive day with the team.
Heather Gracious.
Good morning, I'm Heather Gracious, Director of Elementary for Student Support Services. Today I'm doing great. I have no issues or elephants, and my expectations are to do some creative problem solving around elementary plan time.
Dorman.
Hello, I'm Dorman Land. I'm a Spanish teacher. I'm exhausted today. From an emotional outburst. So I got a little affect this group, but I have no issues or elephants, and I expect to get a lot of extra work done with extra time.
Thanks, Dorman. You're breaking up pretty bad, so we may have to do something with you there. So,
Dorman, I might suggest if you turn off your camera and your mic and then turn it back on in a moment. Oftentimes that helps reset the connection.
Thanks, Dave. Nancy.
All right.
Good morning, I'm Nancy Leonard, a retired principal and consultant. Feeling pretty good. No issues or elephants, and I'm looking forward to the creativity that will happen today.
Laura Leppy.
Good morning, I'm Laura Leppy. I am exhausted this morning. I went into school yesterday. Oh, I teach, math at Holstrom Middle School. See, I'm reading from Sandy on the side. I went in yesterday. I started packing up my room yesterday and I forgot how much work that is. And so my whole body from head to toe hurts. I hit 10,000 steps at like 10 a.m. So I apologize. And I haven't had any coffee yet because I slept through my alarm and didn't have time to make any. But I have no issues or elephants other than that. And I'm doing great. And this is going to be the greatest 3 hours. And I can't wait because I love being here and it's always really fun. And I'm looking forward to getting some really good work done. And you guys helping me through all of this because everything's a little blurry still.
Dave Lockley.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Dave Lockley, president of DTEA. I do, before I finish my check-in, I want to take a moment of indulgence with hearing everybody talking about how tired they are and, the 60, 70-hour weeks. I just want to pause and say that I know we are all at the edge of our endurance and our stress and everything else. But I want you to know, all of you who are working with students or supporting those working with students, how important the work that we're doing right now is for everybody. Yesterday, my daughter Annabella was not having a great day. She was, just off kilter, and her SEL does a connection circle every Tuesday and Thursday for the different grade levels. And yesterday, she was having a bad day and got on and connected with her SEL, connected with her classmates, connected with her friends, got to have that one moment of, interaction with folks that she hasn't seen every moment of her day for the last 40, 50 days. And it changed her entire trajectory of her day. She was now more productive. She wasn't fighting with her brother anymore. And so you guys are doing such an important job right now as a lifeline to our students and our community and to each other. So I know that it's hard and I know that we're all tired, but please, please, please know that it is all worth it. And will be worth it in the long run. That's my moment of indulgence. I'm going to go with inspired. I was inspired to put on a little bit of a jacket today by Mr. Land. Didn't want to be showing up anymore. And it was also cold in the house today, so a little twofer there. I'm doing well. I have no issues in elephants. And my expectations is that we begin to broaden our minds and our thoughts into next year and the realities of the world that we left behind. So.
Well said, Dave. Thank you. Marty.
Thanks, Dave, for saying that. I think it's important to be heard. Marty McCarthy, principal at STEM Launch. I'm doing pretty well this morning. I took some self-care. I redid my hair and, took a little care of myself there, a little pampering, and then no issues or elephants. And I'm excited to be future thinking. I'm excited to be thinking about a schedule with a plan and bells and classes. So there we go.
Laura Mitchell.
Good morning, Laura Mitchell. I serve on the board. I'm good this morning. I'll just tag on to what Dave said just a little bit. Hopefully, maybe it'll help brighten you guys a little more. I have an opportunity to talk to parents in a lot of districts, and by far and away, I get the feeling that the parents that are in our district feel like I get the best feedback from those parents about what's going on in our online learning and their experiences, and frustrations with other districts that I just don't hear from parents in our district. So maybe that's why you guys are so much tireder. I don't know, your compatriots in other districts are probably very tired too, but I think there's really good things happening as a result of what you're doing, and your kids are feeling it and their parents are feeling it. So maybe that'll help, but I do agree with Marty that it's going to be fun to talk about elementary plan time, like in a real building with, real kids, and everybody's not virtual and like a cartoon. So hopefully we'll enjoy that. I don't have any issues in elephants, and I'm going to expect us to check off our sick leave bank and get far into elementary plan time. Thanks.
Darren.
Morning, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Darren Oliver, principal at Silver Creek Elementary School. No issues, elephants. I'm doing well, actually. It's middle of the week, and like to echo what Dave said. I think today's going to be exciting to do what's best for our families, as far as families working in the district, and then also what's best for our students in Adams 12 with the elementary plan time.
Kathy.
Morning, everyone. I'm Kathy Plomer. I serve on the board. I'm pretty good today. I've been battling some migraines this week, so keep your fingers crossed that today is a migraine-free morning. I would love to have Laura's energy. I'm sorry about coffee accidents this morning. Happy to say I have a large cup. I'll probably make a new one during this meeting. I'm just honored to serve on this team with everybody. I have to say, I can't even imagine all that you're trying to deal with and figure out. And I just am appreciative today of being with you all, and looking forward to digging into tough problems, but that people are all really dedicated to finding a good solution. So thanks, everybody, and we'll get to work.
Matt.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Matt Schmidt. I am the principal at Pathways Future Center School. I am holding on tight. So, okay, that's all you can ask for these days. Yeah, definitely no issues or elephants. My expectation is that we can all keep open minds and plow into this work, especially in starting to deal with elementary planning time. It's been on the table for a long time, and I have an expectation that we can start to get creative and get that figured out so it's best for all parties. So happy Wednesday.
Mila.
Good morning. I'm Mila Shepard, Chief of Human Resources. Doing well this morning. I think the fact that I moved to tears by nearly everything might be like a secret sign of exhaustion. I don't feel tired, but Dave, sometimes you make me cry for other reasons, but today it was a really nice, inspiring reason. Thanks for that. My expectations are we're going to do some good work today. So thanks for being here and bringing your energy and time to this process.
Sandy.
Good morning, Sandy Sorensen, North Glen High School science teacher. Matt, I got to say, I'm a little disappointed that you're not in your cool urban industrial apartment background today. That was so cool the other day. But I'm doing good. I was, because I'm staying with my mom right now, and she, you know, between yesterday and Monday with the Zoom meetings, she goes, wow, you know, so many meetings. You're just so busy. I go, yeah, but normally I'd be like, well, if we have a morning bargaining, which we don't usually have, but I would go to the admin building and then go back to my classroom. And then any other meetings after school, I would have to go to those and then come home again. And in the meantime, try to take care of the pets. So and she goes, well, I guess that's why they pay you, huh? And I go, actually, all the stuff in between the Zoom meetings that I get paid for, you know? And so I'm just grateful that it's not a lot of running around, and again, trying to be grateful that we get to do this, but it might be slightly less exhausting than in the real world that we used to live in. So doing pretty good. I have no issues, elephants, and expectations. TA.
Linda. You're muted, Linda.
I'm sorry. Thank you. I'm Linda Walthard. I'm a retired counselor and teacher from the district. I am doing well today and have no issues or elephants, and I'm just looking forward to conversations around the planning time situation for elementary teachers.
Jim.
Good morning. I'm Jim. I'm one of your facilitators today. I'm doing well. I don't have any issues. Expectations are this is an extremely long-lasting problem that we've had in public schools since at least the 50s. So we'll do some creative work with it and do the best work we can. I'm looking forward to the day.
And I'm Dave. I'm one of your facilitators. Doing well today. I'm like everybody else, a little tired. I'm zoomed out, so to speak, and so little tired on that. So please be patient, as we will with everybody. I appreciate that. The other thing I want to let you know is my sons helped me put up a couple of other displays because my old eyes are having trouble reading some of the stuff. But the one that your faces are on are off to my left. So if I'm looking that direction, I'm not ignoring you. I'm actually looking at the faces on the screen over here. So just wanted you to know that. I have no issues or elephants, and my expectations is that you just keep working like you have. You're such an incredible group of people to work with, and I appreciate every one of you. And so just keep rolling as we're going down through checking off the list. So. Report on the sick leave subcommittee. Who's going to do that?
I guess that's me.
Okay.
So yesterday we came together with a subgroup that you guys commissioned on Monday, and our report is at the bottom of the sick leave bank story document from last time. If you want to scroll down to the bottom of that document, it has it in there. At the very bottom, the title is, I called it melding, you know, pulling it all, the different language pieces together. I'm watching the little bubbles increase as people are getting to that that document. So I'll give everyone a second to get over there. All right, once you're in there, go ahead, and I'm not gonna, you know, it's all in front of us. I'm not gonna necessarily read it out loud for everybody. So just take a second and read through that paragraph plus bullet item. We can take questions or comments, Dave, in a moment once everyone's had a chance to read it.
Okay. So as you finish reading it, if you have a question, please put your hand up in the participants box.
Linda's raising her hand.
Linda?
Just to be consistent, change the will in the second to the last line to shall.
Second to last line of the bullet or
Amount
the regular?
shall usually.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions?
I just have a comment. We talked a little bit about the timing of, it's really the second line where it talks about upon the return, or it's the third line, that the district shall grant up to 5 additional temp days at the current daily rate. These days will be used within the same school year that the consecutive medical leave commenced. And we talked about the fact that sometimes we have extended leaves that bridge a couple of school years. And once you enter a new school year, you have a new accrual of 10 additional days. And so if you're in that particular situation where you're coming back from an extended leave, you're not necessarily going to need the loan, to purchase more days. You will have a new accrual of 10 days for your use. So that was the intentional. These days are used in the school year when the leave commences. Many leaves begin and end within the same school year. And that language would take care of that situation. But it was important to call that out for those times when the leave bridges 2 years.
I saw Laura's hand up. Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Laura Mitchell, you had your hand up. Did you want to speak?
Myla just answered my question. Thank you.
Sorry to interrupt you, Dave. Go ahead.
No, I was doing the same thing. That's fine.
Any other questions? Laura Leppi.
Sorry, I think I missed the end of it because I was reading. So for what Mila was saying, so was she asking about the year that the sick leave started versus the year that the person is taking the extended sick leave?
Yeah, so basically, Laura, maybe I'll explain a little bit differently, see if that helps. So whenever somebody applies to go into the sick leave bank for an illness, injury, or medical condition, they have to buy in, if you will, pay the deductible of 10 days. It doesn't matter whether or not that leave takes them into the next school year, or it's an intermittent leave that moves into the next school year or the school year beyond that. They only had to buy in the 10 days that first time. And what this is trying to address is people who basically lose all of their accrued leave before or in the year that they had to buy into the sick leave bank. In future years, they have those 10 days. And so plus, if they're still on leave status, the intermittent leave for their condition. And so we didn't believe there was a necessity to put in having this being an ongoing situation.
Did that answer your question, Laura?
Yeah, so if they are on the sick leave when they come back, then they don't use their 10 days in that process.
Laura,
Yeah.
you skipped a little bit.
I got her
Did you get it?
question. No,
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, so I'll just use an example. So let's say that next week I have to apply for a medical leave that takes me until September to before I'm cleared to return to work. I pay my 10 days now, but when I return back to work in next school year, I get my new set of 10 days for the contract. So I don't have, I'm not in a negative leave or zero leave status at that point. I have 10 days, and I have returned from leave.
Okay. Yep. Other questions? And Colleen, I did see your chat. Bo.
Yeah, just the phrase there of shall usually just strikes me as a bit odd. I think the intention there is that there's going to be a discussion. It might not be the next scheduled one, but I wonder if it reads more clearly if it says shall be deducted. Maybe we remove the next and remove the usually. You're prompting that there's going to be discussion between HR chief and employee, which makes sense. The shall usually seems odd, and I wonder if it could just be shall be, and then you strike the next, and you have the flexibility that maybe it's not the next one, but it's some subsequent paycheck. I don't know. Just those two words next to each other, like kind of, sorta.
Yeah, we had that exact same debate while we were discussing it. And I'll explain a little bit of why we left it, even though we struck it. But if someone else has a better idea of phrasing, more, I think more heads are better than one, is we wanted, this is what it says in the bereavement leave article. So that particular sentence is mirrored in those two places. So that's the one reason why we left it. The second reason is we wanted the default to be kept in it will come out of the next paycheck space, unless both parties agree to a different plan. Does that make sense? And so, trying to capture it's almost always going to happen this way, but there are some rare circumstances where it might not. It was a difficult phrase to try to capture, and like I said, it was the same way it was phrased in the other article where we're purchasing days in a similar manner.
Thanks for the explanation. Thanks.
Marty.
Just a question about contract language. If we put it in there as it will be deducted after this, it will be deducted from the next paycheck. Does that preclude exceptions being made by the HR director?
Short answer is yes. Yeah. So without a wiggle room, we want to leave the possibility for wiggle room for those few exceptions.
Other questions? I don't see any other questions, Dave, so I'm going to move on. Colleen in the chat asked if we could explain the thumb process, just so those who are viewing this can understand the thumb process. So I'll do that really quick, and then I think we're ready to move to a vote. Is that right, Dave, or should there be more discussion on this? Okay. All right.
Without objection, yeah.
Yep. All right. Sounds good. So the thumb process, thumbs up means I'm all in, good to go. Let's get this done and get it in language. A sideways thumb says I'm not totally sold on it, but I'm not going to derail it. We're good to go on it, except I think maybe in the future we need to look at it again or whatever in that line. Jim and I oftentimes will ask if there's a way to move a thumb from here to here. And if there's not, this is a yes vote as well. This is down thumb is no, I can't do it. I'm sorry. I can't do it. But if you have a down thumbs, then you have to come up with a better option to bring your thumb here or here. So hopefully that explains the thumb process. And I think we're ready to vote. I want you to look it over real quick again and just see if there's any other questions. I'll give you a few seconds here. And I can see all your thumbs right now. So if you just put your thumb up in front of your face, I can tell the way you're voting. So all right, thumbs. Oh, I got a question from Chris.
Sorry, gang. So just the last question. The other day when we were having dialogue about this whole issue, Kathy Plomer put in the suggestion, since we're talking a lot about maternity leave, if maybe we needed to have a group do some analysis and some digger dive into that topic later on. So I'm just putting that issue out there. It feels like what we have here in terms of dealing with this discrete issue, I'm a thumbs up, but I also wonder if we've kind of lost track of this larger discussion we had around maternity leave and if there would be benefit through MOU or something like that and setting up a team to do some study around that the next year.
Can I refer that to Dave or Mila?
Yeah, I mean, if that's the will of the group, definitely something that we can pull together a group to bring a report on for our next year's sessions. Mila, do you concur?
I do. Maybe Dave, you, Mussetter, you could call that as a second question just to get thumbs on the will of the group to commission a study team.
Okay, I will do that. All right, I'm going to ask one more time so I can look on the big screen and see see your thumbs. So one more time, put your thumbs up on the first issue. All right, you have consensus. Congratulations. Good job. All right. Good victory there. So the second question for thumbs is to put together a study team on maternity leave. Any discussion on that? Marty's ready to go. So any discussion on that? I have Chris and Laura Leppi with their hands up. Chris?
No, that's, I guess, I wonder if we need to go through the typical stuff where we say how many people are going to be on it and anything in terms of more specifically what the charge is. I think the concept is good. I could see perhaps Mila and Dave teasing out more specific language on that offline and then bringing it back for an official final later in the process.
Okay. Laura Leppi.
That was kind of my comment as well, that I think that if we do charge or put together any sort of committee, that I think that it's important that we have some folks that have the history of like when we used to have it. From what I understand, we used to have some sort of maternity language versus current language, the switch from maternity to medical and all inclusive and all that stuff. So I think that if we do put together a crew, that we just need to keep in mind that people that are helping with that should probably have some sort of knowledge as to what happened versus current.
Okay, Dorman.
Can you hear me now?
I can.
Okay. Well, I wonder if it's going backwards in time to start parsing out different types of medical. You know, we have medical because of pregnancy, we have medical because of cancer, we have medical because of other things. So I don't know if I don't know, I haven't heard enough to be comfortable with someone going out and looking at this. I don't know, just me.
I think we got most of that, Dorman. You're glitching again. So I'm going to go to Kathy Plummer.
Yeah, I mean, I think based on what my original suggestion is, the examples that I most heard and the most common we get is pregnancy, but it could apply for if you have a cancer diagnosis and you're out and you have lots of appointments. So I guess I'm not sure how to frame the committee, but if my question was, you know, we're handling a problem of people needing extra time after a significant medical event. Generally, pregnancy was the examples most given, where there's follow-up things that you know you have to do, and you may not have time. So if it's a larger policy issue. So I think framing the committee could be around pregnancy or other long-term medical illnesses. But I'm not sure. That's a good point, Dorman. I hadn't thought about that.
Okay, I have a bunch of hands that just popped up. I have Dave, Sandy, Shelley, Marty. Dave.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I mean, my suggestion would be to give Mila, to echo what Chris said, a second to maybe draft up for next time what this may look like for a formal vote. I was more just speaking for the will of the group. If that's the direction they wanted us to look into, we could create a draft scope and committee group that we could do. And then the second thing I just add is that really, you know, when you're talking about maternity leave or parental, some sort of parental leave, there are certain things that define it that make it different than medical leave. So that would be, we would be working on something different. And just as a reference point, we do have parental leave. It's just unpaid parental leave. That is the difference. And that parental leave is for either the mom or dad, whether it's an adoption, whether it's a foster, or whether it's a pregnancy, natural childbirth. So we do have parental leave. We just don't have it in a paid status. And so just like I said, just as a reference, my suggestion is we draft up what it could look like and have people react to that. Because I do hear and understand some of the concerns being raised on the scope.
Sandy.
I was the one who had, I can't remember right now if it was interest or option in creating language around specifically maternity leave. And after thinking about it now for a few days, not only because it's the question I get probably the most around sick leave bank is from pregnant teachers. And so that's why I think it needs to be addressed. And the other thing is, I got to be that person that says it. I think it's a women's issue that, if people go out on cancer leave, if people go out on some car accident leave, that could happen to anybody. But I really feel this is a women's issue, just conversations that always happen in my building. This has to be addressed. I believe it is also an equity issue. It has to be addressed.
Shelley.
I think I'm going to be a voice of dissension here because I'm feeling really confused. I know we talked a lot about maternity leave, and it was most frequently referenced when we were doing this work. And so I'm just wondering, did we not do the work that we set out to do? And because to me, it almost feels like we're starting over. We just got a positive vote, but now, I don't know, I'm feeling really confused. Did we do the work that we set out to do? Or did we take a shortcut and now we have a new charge and we haven't really addressed the issue? I'm just feeling really confused.
Hey Dave, I want to address that for a second. So, in this space, when we start talking about medical leaves and parental leaves and that kind of stuff, it does get very, very convoluted. So what we dealt with was the medical necessity for recovery after childbirth, for cancers, for accidents, injuries, that kind of stuff. And that is a very real issue. And maternity is not the most common, it's just the most common single reason, right? There's lots of reasons that people go out on sick leave bank. That maternity recovery after pregnancy is just one, the most, what did Dorman say? The mode. I'm going to use a math term. The mode of reasons why folks go out on sick leave bank. But maternity leave and parental leave is a separate issue because that's leave designed for bonding and creating that emotional relationship with a child after the fact. And not to enter into debate, but those are two very separate issues, as we have defined it. Now, some companies, some organizations have made that one overarching issue, made it one policy, and they maybe don't have a sick leave bank, or maybe they don't have maternity leave, but the father or same-sex couple or somebody else can't access it because it's a combined, the person has to be involved in the medical incident in order to attain the benefits. And so this is a very complex issue with a lot of the maternity leave question is a very complex question with many different approaches. And, I don't think we didn't address the issue that we set out to address. I think another issue was raised to the front that needs to be potentially addressed in the future.
I have Marty, Chris, and Colleen.
I would agree with Dave that this is a separate issue. I don't feel like it's connected with I think the discussion is whether we want to have a separate policy for parental leave that's different from the medical leave. I think and I would also say that I don't think it's antiquated to have a parental leave program. I think that a lot of people or a lot of organizations have this. The rub for me that I've seen over and over is that some new parents don't want to have to take a week or so of leave due to pregnancy or adoption, and that's all they want to take. But to get a full benefit, they have, like, if they wanted to take more, they have to totally reduce their days to 0. And so it seems that it's counterproductive. Like, it's a level of frustration that comes from families when that happens. So I just think that there's room to talk about it and investigate it. And I don't think that it diminishes the work that was done on the medical leave side at all.
Chris.
Yeah, I see it the same way. No need to belabor it. I feel like we solved the discrete issue in front of us, and that folks who are out of leave and have issues they need to tend to won't have the same stress, and they'll have an avenue to go forward and take the time they need within this 5 days. But there just was this broader dialogue around parental leave that I think we need to wrestle with and need more time to work on.
Colleen.
So I was thinking that maybe the actual issue is the logistics and plausibility of changing the unpaid parental leave to paid parental leave and what that might look like and if it can be afforded and given to it. Because even though women give birth, fathers deserve some time with their child too. And so I'm not sure it's just a women's issue, it's a parental issue. So if you adopt, you can spend that time with them. If you give birth, but your wife needs to go back to work and you want to stay home with your child, you can get paid to do that as well. I think that it's just the logistics of plausibility of unpaid to paid leave in a different article that we are not talking about right now.
Okay, Dave, I still have your hand up. Do you have more, or did you forget to put your hand down?
I forgot to put my hand down, but
okay.
I do want to cautious us from not entering into debate on the issue.
Yep. And Dorman, your hand's still up. Did you have more?
Well, I just wanted to say that during our clarification questions, we've switched from maternity leave to parental leave, and it makes me a lot more comfortable, just as a point.
Okay, sounds good. So the question that I had, I believe, was separate than what you just got done. And Shelley, I hope the conversation helped you out with this. The question we were putting to a vote was whether you wanted to form a committee to look at this. And Dave also said that they could draft a scope for next Monday's meeting, and you could look at it then. So I'm going to ask Dave, Mila, whoever, if we want to wait for the vote until you see the scope. I'm good with that. I think Jim, you can jump in on this too if you think I'm wrong. But Dave or Mila, let's start with you guys.
Well, it sounds like there's a lot of interest in this topic, and so I would propose that Dave and I draft a general scope of work. That would include looking at the practices in other districts and other employers. That would include looking at law. You'd have a little bit of homework to familiarize yourself with our existing leave policies and what the federal legislation provides. That would all be part of the work, but we could certainly do that for next Monday. So I don't know that we wait for, well, yeah, maybe we just presume that we're going to draft a little bit of a scope and then
make the decision then.
Make a thumbs up on whether to proceed with that scope or add to that scope next week.
Yeah, that good to go, everybody? Does that work for everyone?
So I would wonder about.
Go ahead, Jim.
Excuse me. I would wonder about doing this as a separate group. I would wonder about doing this as a separate group outside of IBS next fall rather, much as you've done other work.
And it sounds like that was the intent. So Dave and Mila, if you guys will go ahead and do that, write up some type of scope, bring it back on Monday, and then on Monday we can get a thumbs up of whether you want to continue it. All right?
Sounds good.
That work good? Does anybody need a break before we go into the elementary planning time?
I think we might want to take just a 2-minute break, just because this, I don't want to take a break in the middle of this work. So just get some coffee, something like that, and then we can get back to it.
That's exactly what I was thinking. So let's go ahead and go 10 minutes. So come back at, actually, I'll give you 9 minutes. Come back at 9 o'clock.
Dave Lockley, do we have access to the story that was started on this issue now? Dave, you muted.
So when I was looking through the drive, I did not see any charts talking about elementary plan time. And then I had to go look at my notes on that day. And I think what ended up happening was we ended up talking a whole bunch, but we didn't get a whole lot of it recorded. Like we were sharing story, but I'm not sure if it all got drafted up. Mila, do you recall that, or does that match what you're thinking? Because I know we spent time talking story on this, but I don't know if that was really discussion and then didn't get recorded, or where that landed.
Well, if you go into the IBS team drive, we created an elementary planning time folder. And if you go into that folder, I did some sorting and organizing. We had a slideshow on February 18th that I believe it was Sandy who took pictures of the slides. And so I put all of those photos of the slides into that folder called Feb 18 slideshow. And then I did find some posters, pictures of posters, and I put those in their, they seem to be interests. So I made a folder called Elementary Plan Time Interest Posters.
Oh, I see those now. Sorry, because they were. I was looking for the. Now that makes more sense. I was looking for a transcribed document. That's why I didn't notice the pictures.
And then I do see. Well, okay, Dave just made this plan time story document. Okay.
Yeah, I just did that.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah. Well, these pictures are from a year ago, Mila.
Yeah.
If you look at the date on them.
Right. So.
I don't think it's a problem to bring them back up as a starting place.
Right.
I
think Sandy moved them in there, and I was just trying to sort them out and like compile things. Let me go back and look in a couple of other of my places just to see if I have anything else.
Yep.
Sounds good, Mila. And while you're doing that, Dave, do we want to bring people's attention to that and have them look them over and then ask for more story, more interests, more so on and so forth? And then, so I've got the document up. Can everybody see it, or do I need to share it, Dave?
So everyone at this point, I think, has access to the folder except for maybe you. But no, I don't think we need to share it. I do want to spend just a second while Mila is looking at that, clarifying a question from last time that people asked me, and bring some people just attention to that. And then I think since we're bringing back a story from way back when, having people look at those charts and then engaging in any new information or additional information for you and Jim to record makes sense to me. Mila, does that sound okay to you?
Sounds good.
Okay.
So Jim, let's just go ahead and when everybody's back, refer to Dave. And you can go through that, Dave. One real quick question for you, Dave, because I'm not very schooled in Google Docs. Once we get done with this, do I just save it? What do I do with it?
Do nothing.
You don't have to save it.
It auto saves itself. Yeah.
Okay,
so
thank
what
you.
I always like to do is I like to exit out of the document. There's a little back arrow. I like to exit out of it just because that's just my own like freak out to force save it one last time and then call it good. But you don't. It auto saves everything you're doing.
Okay. Thanks, Dave. Appreciate that.
And if it's not saving, a little box will come up and let you know that it's not able to save it. You're offline at that moment.
Sounds good.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Can you hear me? 1, 2, 3.
We can hear you much better.
All right. I ditched the Wi-Fi.
Let me know when you're ready for me to get going, Dave.
We've got a few people just still coming back, so.
Right.
We're getting closer.
And Dave, where do I find the photos that Sandy took of the charts?
So in the folder that we were just referring to, the IBS team drive, you click on elementary plan time. There's a folder in that folder called elementary plan time interest, but it has story and whatnot from when we bringing this topic back from last time, or from a long time ago, but bringing it back up.
So Dave, the only one that I have out right now is Deborah. She hasn't come back on yet.
It's all right. I'm gonna get going, and I think we can catch Deborah up if there's something she missed. So.
Sounds good.
All right. Hello, everyone. I wanted to just take a second and share with you guys a question and a topic that was brought up. So I've shared my screen here that has the contract language around elementary plan time. So you see these places here, and what we were modifying and editing from the recommendation was this 27.5.1. That was what we were referring to. Right above it, it talks about this teachers shall have, including the contract day period, plan period. You can read it there. There was a question that I answered, and I answered it poorly, about why I felt like we needed to make the practice for our specials teachers at the secondary matching some of this language in the elementary plan time. We were using this elementary plan time language for them, and I felt like it was inappropriate. And that's because in many of our electives spaces at the secondary level, they're on a rotating schedule. So they don't have, we use this 2-week average piece for them to get their plan time within that 10 calendar, regular standard day period of time. They may not, might not have it in week 1, but between week 1 and week 2, that 10-day average, they end up having it because they now, in many schools, have a rotation schedule similar to what an elementary school specials teachers has. And that practice has been in place for a while. And so one of the adjustments that would need to be, was recommended, I was trying to answer and talk about recommending, was that we should have that kind of matching level, because we have rotating AB, ABC, whatever you want to call it, schedules at the secondary as well. And our language we're using is the elementary language to make it acceptable. And that's been a practice that's been in place for a long period of time. So I just wanted to clarify that question. And sorry if I answered it in a way that was confusing to folks last time. To get us ready for our next discussion on plan time, we want to use the Wayback Machine for a second. And if you go into your IBS team drive, in the folder that's called Elementary Plan Time, you'll see a document that we're going to be using to collect story on today, which will also see a folder labeled Elementary Plan Time. I'm going to go ahead and just share my folder so you can see what it is that I'm talking about. In that conversation, half second there. So inside your IBS team drive, we have the elementary plan time folder. And this folder right here, the elementary plan time interest, is actually from when we had to set this topic aside a year ago and kind of pause and do some MOU work to bridge the gap last year. If you recall, for those of you who were here last year, for those of you that weren't, what happened was, the recommendation came in with a 30-minute push, and we, and to adjust the schedule of the day came from the elementary plan time committee. We spent a long time talking about it. and then had to go a different direction because of just the practicalities of moving the plan time issue back. And so what I wanted everybody to do is just spend a couple of minutes looking back at the story, interests and options that we talked about last time. And then Dave and Jim can lead us through a process to add additional story, collect interest, collect options for this current session. Does that sound good, Dave? Okay. So, you know, five minutes, and then Dave, maybe 5 minutes, and then give people a second to check in afterwards. See if they're
Yeah.
ready to go.
Yeah, that sounds
All right.
good. And Jim's actually going to run the process, and I'm going to do the typing today. So
Okay, sounds good. So I'm going to unshare my screen, go back, and so that I can spend some time referring back to it myself.
I like the positivity of Teresa's blouse. It looks like she's got a thumbs up on her shoulder.
Oh.
I was trying to go for flowers since it's spring.
As we're beginning to wrap back up, just as a reference, in that same folder, the IBS folder, there's a folder called TA'd, and I've put in our 2 so far language TA'd into that drive for reference for us to collect. So just so you know that that's also in there, and I've already got our definition of family from last time and what we just finished with sick leave bank in there as well.
That makes me so happy to be filling up the TA folder. I was really happy to create that TA folder.
Yep.
Did we answer the questions everyone had last time about the definitions of the various forms of planning time?
More than glad to take more questions. I believe all the questions that were asked of me that I was able to, that there were answers for, were addressed, except for the one where like I said, I think I answered it poorly, so I restated my answer. For Mila or myself or others, if there are more questions for us on the work that was done, more than glad to bring that back up. But I think it felt to me like we were entering into story last time.
Right.
And so more than glad to, I think my personal thought is if we enter into story and if questions come up, addressing them
okay,
in the moment might make more sense.
And Jim, Kathy Plummer does have her hand up. Kathy?
So I'm looking at the plan time committee recommendations that we looked at last time. Is there something we should do with that? And then also, I felt like where we got stuck last time, and I know there's not a formal decision on pushing start times, but how does that play into the discussion today? Still not having a formal decision on if we're keeping the schedule the same or moving it.
I mean, my personal thought that is that there's nothing that needs to be done with that recommendation. It's now part of story, right? It's a sitting recommendation that was commissioned by this group for us to, after we go through story, interests, and options, to tear apart, to use, to take elements out of whatever is the pleasure of the group. I would say, there's a lot of hard work put into it, but if it doesn't meet our needs, it doesn't meet our needs. And then I think we can do story, interests today and get into options. And like I said, the will of this group was to kind of walk down the path of the 30-minute push. And if, because frankly, although it doesn't sound like it, it's actually the easier of the two potential answers to be dealing and approaching with. And if the decision is made in a different direction, then the story, interests, and options are all still valid, because it's still the topic, that's still the conversation, it's still the information necessary. We may just have to revisit our options space to restart that work.
Dave, one thing I'd like to add is do your best not to repeat the same story interests that we did in the past.
Chris.
Thanks, Jim. I just wanted to clarify too, Kathy, there's a meeting immediately after this one today with that group that's been looking at planning or at start time options. And I expect they will culminate their work today. That's my best hope, and make a final report recommendation on to me, and I'll be able to take action next week on that. So we're very close.
That was the only sad part about adding it to making this a 3-hour Zoom, is that I no longer had a break between these two meetings. Straight from this to
Colleen.
another 2.
Last time when I was asking a question, you guys said it might be story that this committee was made up of elementary school folks. And that middle school and high school weren't in on any of this language development.
So we're ready to start in the story then?
Sounds like it.
Dave, did you get that?
I'm working on it.
All right.
Allison, did you have a question?
I do. I guess, where did 225 come from?
I mean, Linda might be able to give a more specific answer to that where the 225-minute number comes from. I'll tell you that it is a very common number in contracts across the state and really the country. So I'm not actually sure where the genesis or why that number kind of melded to. I just know that it's a very common mathematical formula.
Linda?
It's the only number I ever remember. So I don't know that I could add anything in terms of where it came from. We'd have to go back and look at the original, when the contract was originally created, to see if it was included there. So I can't add anything to that.
Okay. Sandy?
I just wanted to make sure, Dave Musser, you brought up a good point about not repeating the story and interest from the past. Did everybody find those charts in the drive, the photos of the story and interest, so that we make sure we can save some time and not add to it?
If you did not, raise your hand. Looks like everyone has. More story.
Sorry, Jim, do you want to popcorn, or do you want to go around the room?
Let's go around the room once and then we'll see where we go. Allison? Any more story?
Sorry, I need a minute if I have to not repeat. I have to just double check that what I want to say isn't there.
All right.
So you can pass. You come
Teresa?
I'm going to pass at this moment.
Deborah?
Pass.
Shelley?
Sorry, did you
Shelley,
call?
you're muted right now.
I'll pass for now, but I might need you to come back to me.
Sure, we'll do that. Heather Espinoza?
Okay, I'm going to try. I don't think it's in there from what I looked at, but elementary teachers spend more minutes in front of students and receive less plan time than our secondary colleagues. And can I ask, what document are we adding this to so I can look at it?
Yep, in the elementary plan time folder on the IBS drive, there's a document that is titled elementary plan time chart. I put in quotation marks in the, like I said, in the, thank you, Eddie, in the drive there. Did you find it, Heather?
Is it plan time folder or just in the main drive?
It's in the plan time folder in the IBS team drive.
Okay, I'll keep looking. Thanks.
Yep. Okay. If you need help, just let me know.
And Jim, I got it.
Okay.
Having not
Bo?
been here last year, I'm still catching up on pieces here. I'm reading them on my phone, which slows me down a little bit, but I may want to chime in later.
All right, Colleen,
Pass. Mine's already on there.
Chris,
So mine's a question. I can't tell this part of the story, but I think it'd be helpful. So my understanding is that once upon a time, we did have a schedule in place or an arrangement in place that allowed teachers to have the planning time as required or specified in the agreement, and that changed. And my assumption is that happened with like a structural change about start times for various levels that was 12, 13, 14 years ago. But if somebody could speak to that, I just think it's a helpful part of the story for me at least.
would like to speak to that. Marty, do you?
I was nodding because I agree that, like, I feel like this issue became a structural issue. I feel like it wasn't an issue in the past, and that 225 minutes was kind of a agreed upon thing in it. So I don't have the history, but I do feel the same as Chris that something changed to make this an issue. I feel like it has to do with the elementary schedule, in that there was the time after school that was supposed to be used for collaborative planning, and that was not a great design because it interfered with co-curricular and after-school activities for students. But maybe Darren knows more about it than I do.
That's exactly what it was, because the co-curricular that's supposed to be starting at 3:15 is not. So it's turning into that planning time after school is no longer much of a planning time. Some teachers do meet on certain days, but it's nothing that the administrators touch.
Let me wait to see until Dave gets finished here. Did you get it, Dave?
I think so.
All right.
I'd like to have Darren, if you can see it, and also Chris, because I put, I tried to capture Chris's in there. So I put two stories, one that Marty and Darren were sharing, and then Chris's. So if you'd look at the document, tell me if that's what it is or if I need to change it. Does that look correct? I'll start with you, Chris.
So I'm just gonna give my proxy to Darren. I think he knows this issue best. So if he's
Okay.
good with it, I'm good with it.
Thanks. Darren?
I was reading the story pages that you guys wrote. What is your new one that you're on, that you're typing on?
Dave, can you explain to him the new document and how to get to it?
Yeah, I'm looking at the posters.
Yeah.
And I looked at the recommendations. I don't see a new story.
So do you have one that says one of your files is elementary plan time?
Mm-hmm.
Then inside that, is there one that says elementary plan charts?
Okay. So plan time after school is no longer plan time. This affects co-curricular. Yep, that's pretty much it. That's it in a nutshell.
Thanks, Darren.
Heather,
I'll pass.
Dorman,
Mine's already on the charts.
Nancy,
Pass.
Laura,
So specifically with that before after type stuff, my story, I guess, is that when we that the elementary plan time impacts K-8s very differently, because we don't have that before school and after school stuff to begin with. So when, like, if we change things for elementary schools, it doesn't necessarily have the same ringtone, so to speak, in K-8s, or ability to rolled out in K-8s. Also, there are 2 people with their hands up. I don't know if you can see that.
I can.
Okay.
I'm just waiting for Dave to finish typing now.
I did finish. If
Okay.
she wants to look at that, go ahead. I don't know why I
Allison?
highlighted it.
Allison?
I guess it's kind of a question and kind of maybe part of story. So I'm just remembering when I was at middle school and all of a sudden the appearance of DDI stuff and the impact on my planning time for that. So I'm just wondering, are some of the impacts on planning time coming from district mandates that then principals feel like they need to be in those meetings? Like, are we infringing on planning time with things that are coming from a district like curriculum committee?
I won't put that down because it's more of a question. If somebody can answer that question.
Marty?
I think the answer to that question is, it has to do with the sort of new idea on the table that you're going to differentiate planning time into 3 categories instead of 2. I think that is maybe. So in the past, I would say when planning time was really differentiated into 2 categories. Planning time that was teacher directed, that was to be undisturbed by the admin, and that was to be 225 minutes per week on average. The rest of any planning time that was built into a schedule was basically there to be used as the administrator saw fit to further the collective goals of the school. So I think that, you know, if the 225 minutes of individual planning time per week was being used to do district mandated things, then yes, the answer is that. But I would say that if that was the case, that was a misuse of that time, in my opinion. So does that answer the question, Allison?
Kind of, sort of. I guess okay, so you're saying your opinion. I would say my opinion is that the district is creating new mandates that negatively impact teacher-directed planning time.
So that would be part of story, right,
Yeah,
Allison?
so that was my question. So I guess
Okay.
it is kind of a debatable thing. So I'm gonna add that to story. Yeah.
Okay, so Allison, what I put on here is district mandates have negatively affected plan time. Is that good enough? Okay.
Or teacher-directed plan time.
Okay.
Colleen?
I don't want to get into debate or argument, but I've been on this team on and off since 2003, and elementary plan time has always been an issue, and we are always working to give them more plan time because their plan time is in the contact day, not the contract day. So you can't count after school minutes as plan time for the teacher because their minutes needed to be in the contact day. And I think Linda has the history because she's been doing this the longest and helped develop some of that language. So I'm kind of interested in hearing what Linda says about this history.
Okay, how would you like that captured, Colleen, in the story?
I'm not sure it's a story or not. I just wanted to, some of the things that were said was that we could no longer count after school minutes. We never could count after school minutes because it's contact day. That's the language in the contract. And that's what we're trying to deal with to try to get those elementary school teachers more plan time. And so I wondered if Linda couldn't talk to that because she really has the history, her and Nancy, because they've been here longer than all of us. So I wondered if she could talk to that piece because we've been working on elementary plan time since 2003 at least, and I'm sure longer than that.
Can I clarify what I said? I'm not trying to debate, but what I was saying is that not that the after school time would have been considered independent planning time or self-directed planning time. But I think the rub has been, it was originally designed as collaborative time for teams to work together. And Darren, jump in if I'm getting this wrong. And because that hasn't been able to be the case, I believe that some of that has leaked into the work that's being asked to do during the day, and then there's the issue.
Agreed.
So I'm in agreement with you, Colleen, that it wasn't about that time being used for individual teacher planning time.
Linda?
When this language was originally written, it was well before collaborative time, DDI, many of those programs that are used currently even existed. So it was a very straightforward. We believe that all teachers should have time during their contact time with students to do planning. The high school, remember, their contact day starts whenever the school day starts and whenever the school day ends. Because if you have a 7-period day or an 8-period day or whatever it is, however you've designed your schedule, that's the student contact day. The student contact day at the elementary level were the times that kids were actually seated in the school. So when the language was designed, it was to ensure that the elementary teachers had time during the day to prepare for the rest of the day's lessons, the next day's lessons, whatever. So I think, and I think probably even way back when this was originally put into the contract, there were some schools that didn't honor that time as much as they should have. And so I think that's why there's that history, is that, and I'm not trying to pick on principals or teachers or anything else, but that happens, something comes up and a teacher's planning time, the individual planning time during the contact day was usurped by something else. So as you've moved along and there are more and more demands on teachers' time, the ability for the teacher to have that planning time during the contact day, because of the other demands that now existed, has convoluted the language a little bit. It's hard for me because I know the original intent was to ensure that that teachers got that time during the contact day, that they had time to call parents or do preparations or whatever. I don't live in that world. I never ever experienced collaborative time, planning time as a teacher. So I can see how the movement has come. I don't know that I have the answer for it. I just firmly believe that time needs to come within the time that the students are there, that teacher needs to have that time to take care of whatever needs exist. And how you structure the day, again, elementary is pretty far away from my world as a high school teacher and a middle school counselor. I think you're going to have to look at this in a creative way because when the language was written, things were much different.
And Jim, I did try to capture some of the story that was within that. Let me read it real quick before you've got two hands still up on the thing. Right. Let me read it. The two that I put was elementary time has always been an issue for this team because their plan time is in the contact day, not contract day. That was off of Colleen's. And then off of Linda's, I put when this language was written, it was before many of the mandates. It was created to allow elementary teachers to have plan time during the contact day for their lessons.
Okay.
That work for folks?
So we are, as Dave said, all that was story. And it's hard to capture that if we can't keep it to the point of what that part of your story is. And it is your story. It doesn't need to be debated. That's your story. just make a brief statement about it. We'll capture it. If we don't capture it, then it gets lost and it needs to be repeated about a dozen other times. So let's stay with story. Keep it brief. Dave will capture it. Someone wanted to know if we could see what Dave was typing. And you can see that, but I'm not sure without a second screen that you can see both the gallery view of participants and the document that Dave is typing. And somebody with some technology knowledge better than I have, can you do both with one machine at the same time?
Not effectively.
Okay.
I can share my screen to put up the document that Dave's typing on, but then you would have a limited view of the people. And my recollection was that folks preferred the gallery view, but I'm fine for setting up whatever people would prefer.
And as far as I go, I don't need to see the people. Jim does, so I have got a second screen that I've got it on. So, Jim, you have Colleen and Michelle with hands up in the participants.
Okay. Shelley.
I simply put my hand up because I wanted to make sure it got back to me, but I know it hasn't gotten around to everybody yet.
Okay.
So I can say my story now, or I can wait till the end and wait my turn.
Yeah, I think we were down to Dorman, right?
No, I already passed.
I
Okay.
think I was the last. I might have been the last.
Okay.
I already went.
All right, thank you. And Dave Lockley, story?
My story is that teachers at all level, the plan time minutes protected in the contract is 225.
Marty?
Dave said mine, and also just a note, I think that we had a lot of discussion about how this could affect K-8s possibly a couple meetings ago. I don't need to rehash all of that, but it would be good if somebody captured that could go into the story, because it's not on the posters.
I think I do have it on there, Marty. I put elementary plan time affects K through 8 differently. This was Laura Leppies. It is changed for elementary. It is changed for elementary school. If it is changed for elementary school, sorry, it isn't the same for K-8. If I could read my own typing, that'd be another thing.
Yeah. Thanks, Dave. Laura Mitchell.
I think all mine is captured. I'll pass.
Darren.
In the story phase, I will pass.
Kathy.
I'll pass too. And I'm going to switch so I have another monitor. So I'm turning my camera off for a second.
Okay. Matt.
The structures of the different levels of school, elementary, middle, K-8, and high school, are all vastly different, which makes it next to impossible to have the same types of planning time in the contract.
Okay.
Mila.
I did see in the old story posters some mentions of a 6:50 a.m. start time. And so I want to add to the story to say that no start times for elementary are contemplated before 7:10 a.m. right now. So I think that's a part of story that has evolved as we've explored this issue, and we're not talking about anything before 7 a.m. for sure.
Okay. Sandy.
Matt started to say a little bit of what I was going to say. Just given the committee's new recommendations since the last time we did story or any of the process, here's my chart language. High school plan time is completely being respected.
Got it, Jim.
Linda.
I just wanted to clarify that my earlier response was in response to what Colleen had asked for. I didn't necessarily think that was going to be a part of the story. So however you want to frame that is fine with me. And I would pass on this.
All right. Let's try and go around one more time because there are quite a few comments in. Allison.
Pass.
Teresa.
Pass.
Deborah.
I was just trying to figure out how to put this into chart language, so bear with me for a moment.
Okay.
I know
All right.
it was already captured on our previous story, but I just kind of want to condense it with everything that's just been said as well. PD after school on Wednesdays was designed for principals to be able to meet their needs with teachers, and plan time during the day was meant for teachers to be able to meet their needs. I don't think anybody has enough time to meet the needs of everything that is being required, both of principals and of teachers. Everybody is overloaded. Everybody has a whole lot of expectations at all levels. I think that's my story.
Okay.
It's not chart language, but I think that's my story.
I'm working
Well,
on
the
it.
last
Deborah, let
part.
me do it. Yeah, let me do it, and then I'll ask you to I'll read it to you and ask you if this works.
I can watch it too.
Okay, thank you. So can you see what I wrote there, Deborah?
I can, and I think that's pretty close.
All right. Anything else you need added to it?
I don't think so.
Thank you.
Shelley.
All right. I don't think there needs to be language around this, but I think when we talk about plan time and we talk about collaboration and the needs of administrators and teachers, I think there's this huge element at elementary for not something that would be considered maybe plan time, but prep time. I heard Linda talk about it. Elementary teachers have this huge need for just being able to prepare for the types of lessons that they're going to be teaching. It doesn't always, I don't think, fall under the category of collaboration or necessarily planning, but I do think part of story needs to be elementary teachers need to have time during the contact day with students for preparation. And that's a little different in my mind than planning and collaboration and DDI and work with administration. So I think there needs to be some story about the real need for preparation time versus planning time.
Shelley, can you see the document? Let me know if that works. Okay.
Okay. Heather Espinoza.
Pass.
Bo.
I'm trying to get mine into chart language, so I'm pass for now, but I will be coming at you soon.
All right, Colleen.
Pass.
Chris.
Pass.
Heather.
Pass.
Dorman.
Pass.
Nancy.
I can't see the language on there, but one of the things, I served on the team when we originally got the early release days on Wednesday. And it wasn't just for principal use, it was also for things that were mandated by the district.
Dave.
Pass.
What did you just?
Martin.
Pass.
Laura.
Pass.
Wait. Oh.
Darren.
Wait, I think there's Laura and Laura got mixed up.
Yeah, you're right.
Go ahead.
That's right.
Laura, did you have something?
I don't know who brought it up, but I think it was Matt about the different levels. I think that if remote learning has taught me anything, that teachers really need that time to prepare to be good instructors. Thank you. I don't know what happened. I just heard Laura and I was like, oh, but Dave already went. So.
Darren.
With my experience, plan and prep pretty much is the same thing at the elementary level as far as them preparing or planning to get ready for the rest of the day, taking care of personal needs, something to that effect. And the ERD is the bulk of what is being used for principal or staff, as it was mentioned earlier. But to me, plan and prep is the same thing in elementary level. At least at the schools I have worked at.
Got it, Jim.
Kathy.
I'll try and say this simply. Well, first, I want to just say whoever said it before, that there's just not enough time for everybody to plan, and all plan times are valid. I'll just say a consistent struggle when we look at our UIP is consistency across the district for consistent results for students. So I guess I'll just leave it there. So plan time is important for teacher training and making sure we guarantee all students, no matter where they go to school, a consistent education.
That was a lot of consistently, Kathy.
Feel free, if you have a thesaurus, to use some other words. Uniform.
I like it the way it is. I think it's good.
Yeah. Matt.
I'll pass.
Mila.
I'll pass.
Sandy.
I have, but just a question on Kathy's. It says a constant struggle is consistency across the district for, did she say inconsistent results or did she say consistent results?
I thought she said consistent, but I could be wrong. Thanks, Sandy.
I think I said, the problem is when we talk about what's, we say, well, what's the difference in this school or this school? And it comes down to the strategy is trying to create consistent results, but the problem is inconsistency. So we're both, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. I understand that now. But mine is that in high school, there is no time outside the contact day, 225 and plus minutes. High school has more than 225, is all being honored during the contact day.
I get it, Sandy?
Yes, looks
Okay.
good.
Linda?
Pass.
If you have one, raise your hand, please. Colleen?
I don't know if I have one or if I have a question to clarify Kathy's. So Kathy, please tell me if I'm stepping on yours and repeating yours, but I think there's no consistency in how the spirit of this is implemented in different buildings. So some principals really honor that plan time and other principals infringe on it for whatever reason. Maybe they don't understand the contract, they're new to our district, whatever, but is that what you were talking about, Kathy?
No, I think my part of the story was just some of the things that we've talked about are kind of district mandates for doing work together. And to the board, that's been presented as a mechanism to address when we look at achievement results across the district. That is one of the things that they talk about, is using PD time or plan time with teachers to do teamwork. So part of, I just wanted to get that into the story that for us, when we talk about, you know, district results, that's an important strategy to get results where we want them to be. So, and again, it's not a value judgment, it's just saying that I know for teachers, it can feel like that is infringing on time that they genuinely need, but as a strategy for the presented to the board, it's usually an answer to a question of is, you know, why is this working so well at this school and not at this? And the answer can be, well, you know, we need more time to work with teachers, or there's a lot of, you know, it's just part of strategy that we hear when we talk about addressing different results at different schools, is increasing consistency of PD and time together. So
Colleen, I did put something down in your story. It's very short. Does that look all right?
I don't
Can
know,
you
I
see
can't
it?
see anything.
I'll read it to you. There is
Oh,
no,
wait.
you got it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Colleen, did you have any more?
No, I think that
Okay.
that gets, it talks back to Sandy's point that theirs is totally theirs, so different principals implement it differently, so.
Okay. Anyone else have any more story? Bo?
Dave, don't start typing. I've
Okay.
tried and I just can't bring it all together. So I'll say
Sounds
it, and then
good.
hopefully we can find some chart language in there.
Sounds good. Bo.
We're learning more and more about what's really effective in classrooms. And we know that the provision of time to get better at craft is essential. Some of that time, I agree with the sentiment in the room, needs to be individual, to reflect, to think about your present situation, to address things that are uniquely part of your classroom. There's equal importance to work being done collectively. This work of teaching is incredibly difficult, and to do it alone, I think compounds that difficulty. So when we think about being able to learn from one another, support one another, share wisdom with one another, I think an effective system, even though we're right, the time is finite, really seeks to find a balance between that time that is individual and that time that is collective, to be supportive in that way. Sorry, that's the best I could do.
Okay, Bo, I'm going to read this back to you. I condensed it quite a bit, so can you see it?
I can see it, and that's great, Dave. Thank you.
You bet.
Okay. Colleen, your hand's still up? Do you have more? Okay.
Somebody
Anyone
raised it.
else?
Marty has a hand up, Jim.
for some reason. Oh, okay. Marty.
Yeah, he
and
just raised it.
Laura.
I raised a virtual real hand.
Oh, okay.
I think I want to kind of extend on Bo's, and I tried to put this in a chart language, but collaboration is the most effective method for improvement of practice. And Bo, if that didn't add on to yours with your intent, let me know.
I think it works at what Dave typed in part of the story. Laura, then Allison. Laura Leppi.
Thanks. So for mine, I think that collaboration and meeting with other teachers, like at your level, a lot of times happens in unstructured times, almost more effectively than in a blocked time of like that period. So sometimes it's, yeah, I think that's what.
Use the word is the collaboration and meeting with other teachers at your level is often done informally. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
In unstructured time.
In unstructured time versus the big like hour chunk of time or whatever. Yeah. On the fly, if you will, sometimes.
Okay.
Allison.
Sorry, off of what Laura was just saying, it also happens honestly more effectively when there's not an administrator or coach present. I guess with all of this stuff, it sounds like we're talking about all of these things that need to happen because they're better for students, and so the district is mandating them. And yes, we do need collaboration. Yes, we need to talk about more uniform practices and guaranteed and viable curriculum and all of those things. But the more we mandate that those things happen in certain chunks out of the day, the more we are asking teachers to then take home the work that has to be done. You know, I have to do X, Y, and Z in order for kids to come tomorrow, and that's not an option to not have it done. So that means if I don't get time during my day to do that, that means I'm taking it home and doing it, you know, with my family present, or showing up to school early, or staying later beyond the hours that in the day that I get paid. So something's got to give somewhere. And it just seems like we're asking teachers to end up taking more and more home because we keep infringing on that time when they used to be able to do those things.
Now I put a bunch of things. Allison, can you see the document that I'm typing on? I put three.
I would just add, because of all these increasing demands placed by district mandates.
Okay.
Darren.
The story I'm going back to what Kathy said about the consistency. And I think one thing that the district has done is with ILT, we're all getting the same message and we're using the ERD time to push that out. So there's a consistency from the district. And I don't see us infringing on teachers because there's only one me and 7 teams that I would be mandated to meet with. And that's not happening. I think it's the time that's set aside for the teachers to say, this is going to be our focus. So that's my story, is that the time for true planning or collaboration, I guess I should say, is set up for, it's a consistent manner, and we can gauge it, we can look at next steps, and it's not necessarily a coach or an admin sitting in on that, but it is a focus. Because the last thing I want are teachers coming too early and coming too late. That's not what this is about. This is about having a time where teachers are able to sit together and work and plan with no, what do I want to say? No people coming in and bothering them, not having to make parent phone calls. That's the structure that we are, I believe, the area we need to go into. And that is mostly what's best for kids.
So Darren, I put two things on there. I don't know if you can see the document, but I put two parts of story. They may be the same thing. I'm not sure. Does that look all right?
Thank you.
Yep.
Dave Lockley.
People work best when there are consistent systems, structures, and routines in place for them to do their work, regardless of what work we're asking people to do. It should be predictable, it should be routine, and it should be systematic.
So what is it today, Wednesday?
Teresa.
Okay, I'm trying to figure out how to best relay this information. I think in the time that where we're at right now with this virtual remote learning, speaking as a administrator and working with my team, the consistent structure of having planning time has really helped organize us in this time frame and in the building, but even now has helped us deliver really effective, really good lessons for our students. And I think it's because we had a good structure in place for planning, and that involved all of us planning together collaboratively, teachers, admin, coaches. So I don't know how to best get that out there, but that consistency, that structure really made this process a lot smoother. And I may just be speaking for our school, but I'm assuming that's across the board where we have those structures in place.
Teresa, can you read the document? I don't know if I got all of what you said.
Yeah, it looks good. I just think the consistency, I also am trying to get through, like, it's not just in this virtual learning piece. It has been effective across the board. So I don't know how to get that across, but I think that's fine.
That look all right? Okay.
So I have Dorman, Deborah, and Laura Mitchell. Dorman.
So when I have a very effective collaboratively designed lesson that I'm going to administer for a grade level, if the time I have to tear down the food unit for 6th grade and then get all the costumes and everything ready for 8th grade is not there, then whoever's second doesn't get that unit, doesn't get that lesson. If I don't have time to tear down the food, put all the hot plates away and throw all the trash away, and then take out the costumes, then I can't do it.
Okay, Dorman, I took some real liberties with that. Would you read that to see if that's what you said or not?
Yeah, I think that's the essence of it. I mean, you have 2 great lessons, but if you don't physically have the time, yeah, I think that's it.
Got it.
Deborah.
I think I want to reiterate what's already been said, but I think it's getting lost. Some schools, it is absolutely mandated that at least one collaborative planning meeting a week, an administrative type person, so I'm including a coach in that, is at a meeting. It's not necessarily, what's the word I'm looking for? I lost the word, punitive. It's not necessarily punitive, but at least one collaborative planning meeting a week, there is a principal, an assistant principal, a coach, some sort of administrator sitting in on everything that is happening. And that does restrict some of the free exchange of ideas.
Hey, Jim.
Laura Mitchell.
Mine sort of goes back to, I think, what Dave and Teresa were talking about. Dave talking about the consistent structures and then Teresa just talking about, you know, the effective planning. And so when I think back to middle school and high school, and you've got these very regimented, I mean, they're non-negotiable. The bell's going to ring, kids are going to change class, teachers are at, you know, your kids are gone. You have your free period and they're gone. And so it's hard for somebody to take away that time from you because the kids are in another class. They're off somewhere and they're under someone else's supervision. And I think that's for elementary, you have the beauty of having this full flexible day and moving it around. And we talk about shared decision-making, but I still believe that somehow in elementary, if you're gonna have this self-directed plan time and all these other different regimented times, then you have to get to a more fixed schedule. Does that make sense? So that you get this concept of we are still, even though, you know, you can wing things 5 minutes here or there, but you need to have some kind of rigid schedules and how things go. I worry if you put everybody's plan time, self-directed plan time at the start of the day, like some of the discussions, that everybody's free. And so it's a lot hard, you know, it's easy for people to say, oh, well, let's do this thing real quick. And to get over top of that self-directed time. I just feel like that there's probably a structure in some kind, and the schedules don't have to be the same in every building. Just like in the high schools, they still do their days differently. They do the time with when teachers are available for students to come in. You know, high schools do that differently, but it's still very regimented on when the start of that is, when the end of that time is, and all the different periods. So I think elementary presents sort of a more challenging protective measure like the middle and high school have.
So there's story there and there's also part option there. So would you save the part option? And we'll bring it up again when we get there.
Perfect.
Hey, Jim.
Colleen.
My best collaborative time planning with people also comes with personal reflection time so that I can meld the things we've talked to into my style and beliefs around education.
So the best collaborative time comes with, say it again, I'm sorry.
Personal reflection time so that I can meld my thoughts and my beliefs in with what we've talked about so I can make it work for me. Because anytime you do a lesson that's not really you, it doesn't come out right. So you really have to meld the things you talk about together to make it your own, to deliver to students so that it comes out the best way it can. So there needs to be some reflection time for every teacher in that plan time.
Got it. Thanks, Colleen.
Marty. Marty, you muted?
I can use the virtual hand now, but I can't unmute. So I feel like, and I'm gonna get this into chart language here, Dave, but
okay.
I feel like we're trying to solve problems of practice, both in management and in collaboration with contract language, and I'm not sure that's possible. So if the collaboration time that's being led by admin or coaches is not valuable in a building or in a certain situation or a certain team, I don't believe that's a contract issue. I believe that's a practice issue. So I guess we need to be clear about what we're addressing, whether we're addressing practice or whether we're addressing the needs of teachers for planning.
Would you read that, Marty, and see if that works?
I would say, Dave, not only practice of teachers, but practice of admin, so like if the issue is that the administrative practice and how they run collaborative meetings is not a value to teacher, not a benefit, then that's something we need to address through practice, not through contract.
Got it.
Bo.
Thank you, Marty. I'm crossing that one off my list. I would agree with you. You said that better than I had scratched out here. And I think just as an addition to that, I would say it's not only possible, but I think the desired state should be to have both consistent system structures and a sense of autonomy and personal ownership.
Say it one more time.
They're not mutually Yep. I think it's possible to have consistent systems and structures and a sense of autonomy and ownership. They're not mutually exclusive.
An autonomy of
autonomy and ownership.
Okay.
I don't have any other hands up. Is that correct? Anyone have anything else? Remember, we can come back and add the story as we need to. But next step would be move into interests. We have some of that on the charts that you've already looked at, I believe. Let's take 5 minutes, take a break, look at the interests. If you haven't already, we'll come back and look at that, but be back at 10:22. Michelle, a quick question for you. Do you prefer Michelle or Shelley?
Well, so I was always Michelle professionally, but I taught at another school in the district, and I was at Meridian when it opened. And the person who set up all of the email accounts knew me from before, and I've always gone by Shelley, like with family and friends. And so kind of instantly, because my email became Shelley, I kind of became Shelley professionally. But yeah, I don't really have a preference. I've always been called Shelley, but kind of officially I was Michelle. So I don't have a preference. I think for the YouTube purposes, they wanted like my official name.
Okay.
I had to change, it did say Shelley originally, and I had to change it at our first YouTube meeting to Michelle.
All right.
You didn't want to have your stage name on there anymore?
As long as nobody calls me Smelly. It kind of evolved too, because I went to high school where my dad was a teacher. So then Shelley really kind of took off when I was in high school. My family always called me Shelley. So, and I do teach with lots of Michelles at my school. One of my third grade teammates is Michelle. So sometimes Shelley is just easier at work now too.
Okay, thank you.
Shelly, I always ask people about their nicknames because I get super angry when people call me Allie without permission.
Oh.
I don't like it. I'm like, mm-mm.
I have a really funny story from when I was teaching middle school. Well, I had been an 8th and 9th grade teacher at Pecos before we were middle school. And the first year we brought 6th graders in. I do the same thing because actually, like I was shy in school, so I would have never told anyone that my family called me Michelle. I just was Michelle because it was on the roll. So I asked students if they had nicknames that they wanted instead of their given name on the roster. And it was the first year we had 6th graders in middle school. And I asked this kid, and his name was Aaron, and he said, yeah, everyone calls me Twinkie. And I was like, I'm not sure that nickname's gonna fly in middle school, but I'm still friends with him. He's like an adult. He lives in Chicago. We're friends, and he still goes by the nickname Twinkie.
I have a student whose name is last name is Brito. And on the first day of school, he goes, I was doing the same thing. What would you like me to call you? And when it came to him, he goes, everybody calls me Burrito. And I go, what? They call you Burrito? And teenagers, he's trying to put me on or something. I go, Burrito, no, I'm going to call you by your first name. And then it was even just like maybe even the next day, I figured out that they really do call him that. Like they were yelling it down the hall in between classes. I'm like, okay, I'll call you that. So he still is now.
Jim, looks like we have a couple folks still gone, but I think we should maybe go ahead and get going if that's all right. And maybe popcorn interests. Now that people have had a chance to look at it. And if there's a bunch of people, then we can go around in circle, but maybe popcorn to start with.
So you've had a chance to look through the charts anyways from interest from a bit ago. If you have another interest that is not repetitious, please raise your hand. Sandy.
I have interest in maintaining high school and middle school plan time as it is now. Is that an option? Sorry. I have an interest in maintaining
the respect that is given of high school and middle school planning time. How about that?
I think I've got it. We can, it's
Yeah.
very close to an option, but we'll
Sorry.
move it over. Nope, no problem.
Okay.
Dave Lockley.
I have an interest of whatever we do being flexible enough to meet the needs of buildings and students and staff, but being clear enough that everyone can be playing by the same rules.
Darren.
I have an interest in putting in supports for collaboration for brand new teachers right out of college or new to our school.
Any other interests?
Marty had his hand up, Jim.
I'm sorry, Marty.
I have an interest in creating a space and method so that you can have true collaboration and effective collaboration between all stakeholders.
Any other interests? Laura.
I have an interest in protecting teachers at all levels within their vastly different schedules, including K-8s.
Deborah.
I have an interest in having the time to properly plan for and prep for all of my lessons, as well as to collaborate effectively with my team.
Do it one more time. Having the time to properly plan for and
prep.
Thanks.
For lessons, as
Okay.
well as to be able to collaborate effectively with my team.
Sandy.
I have an interest in ensuring elementary teachers get ensuring elementary teachers are treated equally on this issue.
Sandy, you glitched a little bit. Would you read and see if that's what you said?
Yeah. Oh, my document's lagging a little bit. Hang on.
No problem.
Yes, that's it.
Okay.
Kathy.
I have an interest in, well, I'll back up a little bit. And it kind of goes to Marty's comment on practice versus time. So I guess my interest is making sure that the professionalism of both educators and administrators is recognized in our end solution. I think I started feeling everybody's trying to do their job to the best of their ability. Teachers are trying to do their job. They've got, you know, all these eyes looking up at them and wanting to have a great engaging classroom. They've got so much on their plate. And then administrators have their job where, you know, they're called to account for the performance, the culture, and of their entire building, which means they have responsibilities of getting people together to make sure that that functions. So, and those sometimes collide. So in the story, I just kind of felt I don't know. I think this part is really hard to do virtually because it feels like, you know, everybody's living their reality and the story is designed to get that out. But when some pieces of story feel like they aren't recognizing where the other person's coming from. I mean, the purpose of story is to tell your story, so it's got to be there. I just started to feel like maybe we were going into an area where the story was maybe stepping on other people's reality a little bit. So maybe that was an issue elephant thing, but I just wanted to get that out there that I think everybody is really just trying to do their best for kids with within what their job responsibility requires them to do. And this time thing is something that is a function of that we just have to manage and figure out. So we will have a minutes solution, but it's not going to get at some of those other issues about how things are better at different buildings or consistent. So there's other issues beyond what we'll solve with the actual time. So sorry, a little speechy, but you got my interest up there.
Thank you. Darren.
To kind of go along on that, I'm having interest in making sure this is not a us versus them. This is what's best for kids, basically, and not taking time away from teachers, but adding in set times where there's a focus.
Deborah.
You're muted, Deb.
Yeah, I saw my little thing pop up on my screen. I have an interest in streamlining some of the many demands that are already on teachers, especially our new teachers. They already have to go to and deal with induction and meet with mentors. And then if they're new, they have to get separate ESL or math trainings. And then they have to come back and collaborate with their team. And right. And that's on top of then doing their own planning and prepping. So I have an interest in streamlining, finding a way to streamline all of those demands.
Okay. Anyone else?
Jim, it
Kathy,
looks
your
like
hand is still
Sandy
up.
has an elephant.
I was kind of ruminating on this during the break, and I was just kind of bothered, and I couldn't really pinpoint why. I had a few ideas, but then after Kathy, you said what you said, I feel like we're doing the process, but every time someone offers a piece of story or a piece of interest, they're defending themselves or saying why someone else's story or interest is disagreeable. I feel like it just needs to be stated. Everybody, that's why this process works, because everybody states their story is their story. And the same, I mean, I guess interest is not quite the same as story, of course, but if you have an interest, you have an interest. That's your interest. And if it conflicts with someone else's interest, I feel like not everybody, I feel like people have a tendency today to point out the differences in their interest or in their story, when we can save that for strata design, because options are going to be conflicting also. So I just feel like this will even go faster, because then questions come up, questions or issues or whatever. So go faster if you just state your story, and that's your story. State your interest, and that's your interest. That's really all that needs to be said.
And they obviously don't have to agree. You see the world through your lens. But they do need to be stated.
And also remember, sorry, Jim, also remember, folks, one of our number one, what am I trying to say? One of the things we live by, what am I trying to call it?
Norms.
Norms, thank you very much. Gosh, brain cramp, old age, I guess, is assume good intent. So make sure you're doing that as we're walking through this, folks. Go ahead, Jim.
Any other interests you want to put up?
Jim, I see Kathy still has her hand up in the participants thing.
Oh, she does.
That was user error, sorry.
Okay, no problem.
I'll just say, I think I agree with where Sandy was coming from, and maybe we had the same kind of thoughts. So I think we're good. Just stay our stuff.
Allison.
I feel like this is something I say almost every time, but I'm going to add it again. I have an interest in creating a solution that is really geared towards the most effective teachers in our system, rather than creating a solution geared towards the teachers specifically who are new or struggling.
Any other interests? We have about 20 minutes left. Do you want to move into options now? See nodding heads. Are you ready, David?
Just a second. I was going to put it on a separate page here, and I'm trying to get down.
Okay.
There it is. Let me get set up here, Jim, and I'll give you the cue. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm a little slow at this.
No problem.
And we may want them to look at their past options too, if they haven't already, Jim. And I'm set anytime you are.
All right. Options are tough. This problem's been around, I think Colleen said since at least 2003, she's been working on it. I would guess that if everybody would raise their hand, if they had worked on this problem before, nearly all of us would raise our hand. It doesn't go away. It is a persistent problem, a persistent issue. So an easy solution, that was the one we tried back in 1903. So an option. There was one option, I think, Kathy, did you have an option before in part of story, was it?
I don't think I had an option, but I just recommended we look at the committee recommendations. So maybe an option would be to adopt the committee's recommendations.
Okay.
The January 31, 2020 recommendations.
Matt?
I don't have an option yet. Could somebody help explain to me? I'm a secondary person and build secondary master schedules. In trying to make sense of the committee recommendations, can someone help explain to me where the different teacher plan times are? I'm kind of looking at, I think, the most recent document that was shared last time, and I just don't quite get it. And I think that's my naive. I've scheduled high schools and middle schools for many, many years, but I don't quite get it. Can someone help me out there before we look at that?
Dave, do you want me to address that since we're talking about the recommendation? Or do you want one of our elementary people to talk about it?
Either way, I think, Matt, which would be better for you, Matt?
It doesn't matter. I'm looking at this document, and maybe I should be looking at something else, but it's called LMN, it's abbreviated committee recommendation, the definition of non-instructional contract time. And then at the bottom of that, there's a scheduled draft example. And so I was just trying to, part of it is just the formatting's a little yucky for me. So I'm trying to, I want to know where the plan time is before we start really looking at this.
Hey, Dave, I can speak to it if you'd like. So basically, this is a 3 round. So let's say you have 3 kindergarten, 3 first grade, and so on. And so if you're looking at, let's say, the common plan, which is what the recommendation would be, the 710 to 755 would be everybody. That's what that common plan would look like. If you scroll down to 910 to 10, that's pretty much all 5th grade team right there would have their plan time while the students are away at specials. Art, music, PE is what I'm assuming with a 3 round. Some bigger schools have 4 rounds. So such as the Silver Creek Meridian, we would have art, music, PE, and tech. So if you look, you have common planning with 5th, common planning with 4th, and so on. And it goes throughout that way. This is a perfect schedule, which not all schools have. But their 2 planning, they have their 1 planning period, which is during specials, and then they have their uninterrupted lunch. And then there's a little bit before and after time for their own planning or organization, whatever they need to do with that. I don't know. I hope that clears it up a little bit.
So Darren, let's just take the 5th grade, for example, that 9,
Sure.
10, 9 to 10, is that their individual plan time?
As it is now, that is individual planning time. I think how Dave has this set up as an opportunity for something else to happen.
Okay.
Yeah, and just as a reference, basically that common plan where everyone doesn't have students in the building that's on this schedule at 710 to 755. Currently, that's sitting at the other end of the day, right? So that's at the end of the day after release time. And so what the recommendation is if you move that up to the other time, then you have greater access to that base because there's no specials going on, or sorry, my brain is skipping, co-curriculars. That's the word that I was looking for. Co-curriculars that have to commence right after students get out of the bell. You can't have them wait until 3:10 and hang out for 40 minutes before getting those started. Does that answer your questions, Matt?
Yeah, no, I think I've got it.
I have a question too. And this is just sort of a clarifying question on the documents. And Dave, maybe you can speak to this. So in our elementary planning time shared drive, inside the elementary plan time folder, we've got a document dated January 31st, 2020. And it's got numbers, it's 1 through, well, it's got a lot of bullets and it's got some numbers, but it's sort of a half-page document. And then we also have this document that Dave, you were just speaking from, that has the charts and the graphs. Can you say how those are alike or different? Which document should we be referring to?
I mean, I think you should be looking at, this looks to me like notations from the presentation I made based off of the PowerPoint that we went through on that session on the 31st.
Yeah.
So those are all notations that are on the PowerPoint, but the physical document recommendation that this group asked us to go back and draft up is the PDF that I was just showing and referring to we talked through at the last meeting.
I think I'm going to rename that then. I'm just going to add the word notes behind it, just so that it's clear that that's a notes page. I think Sandy, you uploaded it and that's been really helpful that you've been uploading things, but I just don't want to be confused about what's recommendations and what's notes. And so if that's okay, I'll do that.
Tuesday,
So if we're at the option space right now, and we've got about 10 more minutes, we can walk through that, and that'd be nice if we could get some of those out. That way we can jump in on Monday into straw design groups to get working. I personally don't have any additional options I want to put on the table at this time.
If you have an option, would you raise your hand, please? Sandy.
Maintain high school and middle school plan times as they are now.
That was the option we were talking about earlier. Thank you, Sandy.
Right. Colleen.
50% of designated plan time is teacher directed, not to include before or after school time for middle school and high school.
You glitched at the beginning. Would you say it one more time?
50% of designated plan time is teacher directed, shall be teacher directed, not to include before and after school times for middle school and high school.
I'm good,
Laura
Jim.
Leppi.
Increase the amount of time for planning as to allow for productive collaboration as well.
Deborah.
To increase the minutes for self-directed plan time from 225 to 315.
Michelle.
Mine actually was very similar to Deb's, but I had a different number. Increase the contract language for self-directed plan time to 350. Can I just ask a clarifying question too? So
Sure.
This 225 currently does, I guess, because I know we talked about like a bottom and a ceiling kind of thing. This applies to all levels, right?
The ceiling, or sorry, the floor.
The current language of 225
Yeah.
applies to all levels. Okay. So
The current floor is 225 for all levels.
350.
Anyone else have an option? Laura?
Add an extra or like a fourth round of electives so that classroom teachers can have that extra planning time.
Chris.
Yep, there you go.
Yeah, I just have questions. There's the first option about adopting the committee recommendations. The second option about maintain high school and middle school plan times as they are now. My understanding is that is true of option one in terms of recommendation. It wouldn't change middle school or high school plan time. So I'm just seeking clarity about that. And I guess my understanding has been on the third bullet that the recommendation would again, I guess I wasn't understanding the recommendation to change anything related to bullet 3 either. So if someone could just give clarity on those two things, that would help me.
I think I can address part of that. So and I think Bo might be able to answer part of that question a little better. So I'll call on him to add to it a little bit. Right now in the contract, the minimum floor for plan time for everyone is 225. The recommendation didn't change that. Although and currently in some of our middle schools and some of our high schools, the use of that time by administrators for different structures and systems looks very different. And that's why I would ask Bo to add on here in just a second. But there is one caveat that I think Colleen was trying to add into that option, was that there is a small but n amounts of time in between in the middle school day between current contract start time and student start time. And so what I think she was trying to do is capture that for our secondary schools, that time wouldn't be, you couldn't use that time for plan time, since they have the 2 periods built into the standard day right now for middle school for our for at least our non-elective classes. They're all built into the day right now. So basically not changing to be able to slide plan time outside of the day, contact day for secondary is what I think she was trying to capture. Bo, would you be able to kind of answer the question about the use of that time a little bit?
I need a little more clarity on exactly what the question is.
Well, I think the question is about the use of time, and the option being not to change how we're using that time is what was put down. And I think Chris was asking, does this recommendation change that, or where is that coming from as far as the change for the use of time during the day that might be more administratively directed?
Well, my interpretation of these options would be that right now the 225 is the floor. It's protected. It's set aside for that teacher time. I think there are options on the table to increase that time, which is fully at the discretion of the teacher moving forward. You know, at the secondary level with beyond that 225, I think we've heard from people in this room that it's very building dependent on what structures and expectations exist beyond that 225. And I think any change in that obviously would probably elicit different responses and reactions from folks across the system. I think knowing that this work has been done with an elementary advisory committee and kind of solving for this elementary issue, when we start adjusting that floor, depending on different secondary schools, that's going to have implications that I do not think are fully on the radar of folks right now.
Just a second, let me go to Colleen first, then Marty.
So Chris, one of the things that I put that in there for is because we all live and die by this language for plan time. And if we don't put in some parameters for middle school and high school, my fear is that some of that individual plan time would be, well, you have before school, you have 25 minutes before school and a little time after school. So that's part of your individual plan time. So I can now take some more plan time during your day. And I'm trying to follow that interest that we had of not disturbing middle school and high school while we're focusing on elementary.
Marty, you had your hand up a bit.
Yeah, I'm gonna pass right now. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else for today? We have about 5 minutes left. When's the next time we meet?
Monday.
At 8
And-
o'clock?
Yep, and Monday, you'll have Dennis Carlson working with Jim because I've got a conflict.
Dennis does a great job with us, so he'll be back with us Monday from 8 till 11. 2-word checkout. Who'd like to start? Michelle, 2-word checkout.
Good work.
And we'll just go down the list from there. Heather Espinoza.
I'm going 3-word, on our way.
Bo.
A start.
Colleen.
Time flew.
Chris.
Unexpectedly complicated.
Heather.
Complicated issue.
Dorman.
Good work.
Nancy.
Somewhat confusing.
Laura.
Cautiously optimistic.
Dave.
Slow but steady. It's like 3 words.
Marty.
Zoomed out.
Laura Mitchell.
Complicated.
Darren.
Getting there.
Kathy.
Honest sharing.
Matt.
Balancing act.
Mila.
Perennial issue.
Sandy.
Keep going.
Linda.
Changing times.
Allison.
I don't know.
Teresa. I'm sorry, go. That was
No,
all you
that's it.
checked
I
out.
really don't know. That's where I am.
Teresa.
Complicated, but important.
Deborah.
Progress.
Dave.
Some of you can't count. Great work, guys.
I appreciate your work. Thank you very much. I will see you on Monday.
And I won't. I'll miss y'all. Have a good one.
Goodbye, everyone.
Is it Monday?